Hello everybody, welcome to another Sunday Funday, and yeah, just to early preface all this episode's not going to lean too much into comedy as much as I would really want to. I will fully admit that, so if you want to fast forward a bit in the video, I will try to put timestamps below if you just want to see an early giveaway for my score, and I'll try to add in some of my overall feelings on the film. Because I'm here to talk about the earlier release in this year Netflix film called All the Bright Places, which is based on the book by the same name. Now, the reason why I need to preface and say that, yeah, this is going to be a heavier episode than others is mostly because of what the book is based on. Now, I have had to tackle difficult movies in the past already. I've had to Black Klansman technically can be one of the first ones I can think of right off the top of my head. It wasn't as heavy as many people wanted to make it believe, or as even Spike Lee thought he was doing. And more importantly, films like Detroit, I believe. And some films I have reviewed already, they have talked about mental health, but usually they do it in almost a hackneyed way or just a shitty version of things. This film, very upfront, like the first opening scenes of All the Bright Places, deals with the star Ellie Fanning contemplating suicide, about to jump off a bridge. Now, there are not a whole lot of good jokes to be made there, and that's probably one of the first issues, is in terms of trying to do a comedic review, or at least try to inject some kind of humor here. So I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm going to try and give you a bit of a synopsis here and explain what my problems are with the movie and what I do like from the film. So, All the Bright Places stars Justice Smith playing Theodore Finch and a young girl. Her name is Ellie Fanning, or her name is actually Violet Markey. Okay, I thought that said Malarkey. I'm like, what? It really confused me there for a second. What? Sorry, I have to sometimes refer to IMDb. Probably should be more professional, but fuck y'all been putting up with me this long this way. So, Violet, played by Ellie Fanning, she is, at the beginning of the film, she's contemplating suicide. And we learn it all has to deal with the fact that her sister died. And the film takes quite a bit to finally explain what exactly happened. What was the catalyst here? Because also, we learned that Ellie Fanning, or we can call her Violet, because that's the character's name. She doesn't want to get into cars. Like, she's not really terrified, but like angrily, like, I'm not getting in a car. Eek. And then Theodore Finch kind of comes in her life, and he begins to change that. And pretty much teenage soap opera is the best way to kind of briefly describe it. Now, if I'm going to give some positives about the film first, before I even get into any negatives, I will say this much. The acting, for the most part, short of Justice Smith, I will get into him here in a bit, is actually quite good. Ellie Fanning does a fantastic job of what she's given. She's, unfortunately, not always given the best material, but she is given some stuff to say. And she can pull it off admirably. Luke Wilson is in this movie. He's in it for all of about 2 or 3 minutes, but he does good with what he's given. Everybody does good. Justice Smith is maybe the worst actor, and even then, he's not egregiously bad. He is woefully inept for what he is supposed to do. And that's where I think I need to begin to talk about the issues with the film. It doesn't have to do with the fact that eventually we'll call him Theodore since that's his name, and I'm going to be referring to him by the characters they portray. Theodore begins to try to get Violet back into life, for lack of a better way to put it. And I will give them this much. It's an admirable idea, but in the same instance, the execution is poor. That's the problem here with the film. And I'm going to let y'all know, I have not read the book. I've only at best read some synopsis to kind of bridge in some issues I was wondering about. But there are some issues, I'm going to get into them later, that tend to bother me when it comes to this entire, or bringing this to the big screen. But the whole idea that, Theodore keeps trying to, get Violet into wanting to go, oh, here, come out and live, come out and do stuff. It does seem to be, thankfully, it does seem to be a bit more leading towards he wants her to do this because he sees that she can be better. In fact, that's kind of a thing early on or later on, that he seems to want to fix things. He wants to be able to fix people, especially those who are broken, because it eventually turns out that Theodore himself is a broken person. I'm going to get into it, I promise you. Sorry, I'm kind of being vague. To put it very mildly, Violet is going through depression. She's going through loss. And more importantly, she's going through survivor's guilt. Because it turns out that actually her sister died. And something the movie fails to tell us. And actually it's kind of a big deal in the book. And it feels really bad that it's left out of the movie. It kind of would have helped things a little bit more. She decided to take this one route when her sister died. Pretty much they were in car together. Probably it was rainy and slipped and they crashed and sister died. Violet lived. Now that is understandable for somebody in survivor's guilt for that. That is understandable. The movie doesn't do that, though. It doesn't explain that. It simply just has Violet say she, was, there. And it's one that's like, oh, I wish it would have been me, and blah, blah, blah. And you do learn that the day whenever she was on the bridge contemplating suicide at the area where her sister died was her sister's birthday. So, okay, that's... For somebody who has dealt with depression, and somebody who's dealt with other people who've dealt with depression, I get it. I really do get it. Not saying that that's a bad thing. Just I think the movie did take a bit too long to finally give us that. It's like, okay, it took 45 minutes to finally fucking explain that. It's like, it would have been nice to have a timestamp, anything, just something to help give us what day is it or anything. Like, the whole movie feels like it takes place over the course of about 4 days. And really it takes place over the course of a few weeks. Kind of an issue with the film. And yeah, so we eventually learn later on that Theodore as well is dealing with his own bit of depression. More importantly, he's also dealing with bipolar disorder. And yeah, I've dealt with people who have bipolar. I have friends that are have bipolar depression and shit like that. However it's worded. I'm trying to say it's like I don't know enough about it. I've looked it up to understand where one of my friends, her mental thoughts can go and everything, and that's the reason why I try to respect her boundaries is the best way to put it. Because there's sometimes she just does not want to talk about things and you cannot push it. And there's other times I can tell it's like she does genuinely need to talk about it. Get into it a little bit more when we talk about future thing. Now, you would think that the movie would be about, oh, well, it's them helping each other to get over their things. Unfortunately, no. The movie decides to actually go much more of a different route. In the fact that Theodore begins to let his bipolar disorder and everything spiral out of control. He begins to let that, as he calls it, awake time, when he's most aware of his depression kicking in. He allows it to begin to control him, and eventually he takes his own life. And mind you, this is like after near 10 minutes near the end of the movie. Now, not saying that that is an impossible thing. Not saying that that's bad, or, oh, they should have went with him saving himself. It would have been a much stronger story. Because it is something that rings true. It rings true in the book, not in the movie. So, Gonna have to deal with sadness, depression, loss, and suicide. This is not going to be a fun video, like I said. So, the reason why I have my issues with this film all deal with how it approaches this. And more importantly, some of the biggest issues I have with the story itself. Story time about me. I trust you, I'm not going to make this entire review about me. So, those who have watched me in my other reviews and have heard me joke about it, I have suffered with depression my entire life. Always have. Just dealt with it. Is the best way I've said. Do not do that. That works for me. Does not work for everybody. Trust me, it's not as easy as I make it seem. So I've dealt with it my entire life. The fact that I have found somebody that one can put up with me is just astounding. But more importantly, we are always there for each other. We're not there for just one another. You know, we're there to help each other. It's one of the weird things about relationships many people don't get. But when I was younger, I did not understand this concept. I really thoroughly was in a Theodore way. I was a mentally, not there person in terms of how I saw things. And I saw a way to try to fix people. Now, that was not what spurred my original relationship with Megan. No. That was a whole other wonderful event that eventually happened. I will tell y'all if y'all are really worried about one of these other days. Grandpa's got bigger time to say. But one of my first real relationships was with another person who suffered from really bad depression. And I'm pretty sure it's bipolar disorder as well. Just because of how she resembled in terms of Theodore. Like, the most I resemble Theodore in the fact that I wanted to fix other people I believe were broken because I didn't want our people to be broken. If I could not be whole in my eyes, everybody else should be, as best as I could. Now, this person I entered a relationship with, it was out of legitimate care. It began to blossom into love. But we were not healthy for one another. That's one of the worst things about trying to have people who have very, very obvious mental... Oh, I'm going to say it, and it's not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to lightheart. I'm not trying to make fun of it. Mental issues. These are people who are dealing with mental sickness that they need to seek help for. Not saying that they can't get that solace in a loved one. But one of the things that told me that eventually was like, yeah, we should not be together, is because of the fact that we did more harm to each other than we were helping. When the highs were high, they were fantastic. When the lows were low, they were, I want to eat an entire thing of pills and just, decide to, I don't need to be here anymore. Not trying to say that is how people with depression deal with breakups or anything like that. But we had to be away from each other. We still talk. We still communicate. We're still friends. But we do somewhat have an understanding that we don't work as well as we probably should. Mostly because of my own proclivities and my own oddities, and also the fact that I am with somebody that I do love and I'm willing to spend the rest of my life with, and she makes me whole, actually. But also, their person does at least understand that she's still not as healthy as she needs to be, mentally. But that's okay. That is something that somebody eventually needs to get to. And I'm not saying that you're going to ever be able to get to that as a teenager. Not what I would ever expect or want from anybody. But seeing that on screen and seeing how it ends up going, ooh, it shows that these are people who really, honestly, I don't think they helped each other as much as the movie would like to proceed with. almost because of how it wishes to end this. It doesn't end with Violet taking her life or anything like that. It's like, oh, well, excuse me, Theodore did something, great, and then it's made up for it all near the end. That would have been sappy. It's sappy and stupid enough as it is. But on top of that, because of how it did actually deal with the entire mental illness, it dealt with sickness. How it dealt with it up to that point, I was like, okay, that's very true. But there's always the one thing I was wondering. It's like, somebody who has dealt with depression and has had friends take their lives, you do always wonder, is it because of me? It sounds stupid. I know all normal, mentally healthy people are going, that is stupid. I admit, it's not a normal mindset. It's a mental illness, that's the reason why. But more importantly, that is what I would figure a character who is still trying to get over the trauma and gain over the grief of her sister dying and still blaming herself. And only recently coming to grips with the fact she doesn't have to blame herself. Seeing another person that she grew affection for and grew love for, take their life and not really have any clue that they were, that they didn't do it because of them or anything. Because beforehand, like, they had a bit of a tiff. Her father got onto Theodore and all this other stuff. Because of Luke Wilson's own kind of portrayal, it's just kind of like, he's like, just go away for a little bit, man. Okay. Just like, alright, just generally go away. Father be like, fuck her. However dare you do that. I don't care if you deflowered her. Just now I'm pissed off because you fucking kept her out too late. And that's a big problem the movie deals with. Now here's where I gotta talk about the book. What little I know about it. I have read about what actually happens at the end. It's still very similar. He ends up drowning himself. How he does this, I don't know. But he ends up sending everybody emails and texts and pretty much saying his goodbyes. And in the book, his goodbye to Violet is very cryptic, because he was always kind of cryptic. It's kind of a bit of a thing. But it's pretty much him telling her, do not blame yourself. This is me not being able to cope with who I am. This is me not being able to be better. That is so much stronger of a message, and it's so much, for lack of a better way to put it, realistic. It's much more tangible. It's something that would seem a lot more real, and not only that, but for somebody who we're supposed to see at the end of the film swimming and begin to enjoy and live life again, it's weird that all of a sudden now she's just doing that without that kind of a message. Like, her being able to enjoy life again makes more sense with the knowledge that he didn't do it because of her. That he says, like, no, this is my demons taking control of me. This is not you doing anything. Because throughout the entire film, he seems to be more introspective into her own mental illness. Probably because he's been dealing with his own for so long. And, okay, that's cool. That's interesting. But then, it's like, you just get that ending and you're like, what the fuck? It's like, I'm all for happy endings, but why the hell do we have an ending that's actively asinine? Like, it just spits in the face of everything we know about how this kind of a person would deal with mental illness. This is a person who's already having to deal with her own survivor's remorse, and then on top of everything, she doesn't have a 100% way of knowing. It's like, well, maybe he did because he was mad at me, or maybe it's my fault. I'm just gonna sit here and go down the street instead of across it. It's just, it's such a weird moment that it really took me out of the film. And it's bad because, again, like, The movie, for lack of anything talking about its actual like subject and heavy matter, hey everybody, thank you for coming back. And skipping over, a little bit of rough stuff. But the whole movie, it's not bad. That is probably the worst part of it. Beyond that ending that just kind of runs in the face of everything that seems to be dealing when it comes to these characters. Not saying that the character should have lived or anything like that, because it goes against the book, but there should have been a better closure for it. Maybe they felt like, oh, it'll be more realistic if he just killed himself and decided not to leave anybody notes. Okay, but still, this doesn't work for the other character then. Not for what we see that happens. And also, I have to touch on the other big elf in the room, and that's Justice Smith. First off, I get they kind of pretty much begin to portray their courtship. It's it's creepy at times. Like at the beginning, like he's perusing on her Facebook and checking out different stuff on her, like her sister's blog that they both had because she liked to write and shit like that. And it's kind of, I and some people may think it's really cute. It's like, oh, he actually really does. He's introspective and cares about what's inside of her rather than just being inside of her. It's like, it's so weird and creepy that he's doing all this without really knowing her. Like, the most he knew her was at the beginning when he talked her off the ledge and kind of knows about her from school. That's kind of it. And yeah, that's a lot on the weird side. But it's it's not quite Edward Cullen, but it's kind of Ducky from Pretty in Pink, in the fact he's so oblivious that he doesn't really understand he's not doing as good of a job of being a good person as he really should be. And again, it doesn't help that one of the first things is he's supposed to be. He even says like, "Oh, Vince's like, I'm trying to fix people. And I like fixing people," and it's like, it makes the reason for falling, or makes the reason for befriending her even weirder. It's kind of weird and at times. And also, I have to throw it out there. It's like Ellie Fain does fantastic in her role. She does really good. She's able to portray all sorts of emotions. Justice Smith never can. Like, even when he's supposed to be, going through his darker periods, he looks bored. He just. It's not somebody who looks like they're, constantly, like, the eyes are moving because they're unable to focus on their thoughts and everything's just going 3,000 miles a second. Everything is just overwhelming them. Everything is just this cacophony of noise or anything like that. There's none of that. He's just bored looking. And he does fine. His delivery is fine, but that's the most I could say. Everything he does is fine. Nothing is good that he does. It's okay, I guess. Thanks. Ugh. And it feels bad because there was obviously an attempt to try and make this movie not a super run-of-the-mill film. But kind of by the end, it feels sort of like a Nicholas Sparks movie. It's a film you throw on because you want a good cry, because you want to see a somewhat sort of bittersweet happy ending. But ultimately, by the time you get done with it, you barely fucking remember the thing. There's nothing egregiously bad about it. It's almost mediocre, but because of Justice Smith's lack of acting and being able to pull off, I really am sad, or I am really dealing with some shit right now, because of that, it kind of brings the movie down quite a bit. There's a lot of moments where it feels a lot more lacking than it really should. So, because of that, really, the movie, for a final score, it's a 4. There's nothing egregiously terrible about this. There is some bright spots, but there's so much that it doesn't do right, and there's weird changes to the original book that just doesn't fit. Also, it really does not help that we get a lot of Theodore and we don't get a whole lot of Violet. There is some of Violet, but 90, or I'd probably say about 85% of this is Theodore, and it's where I think the problem lies. If it had decided to do a lot more like the book is literally just Violet and Theodore's way of, it's like one chapter's them, they're a person, so on and so forth. If it had that, I think this would have been a lot stronger. This would have been a lot more gripping. This would have actually kept me interested. There's also that's the area issue. The movie sometimes is just because it feels kind of passe, and it feels just kind of been there, done that in terms of films dealing with mental illness. Seen them kind of before. Some done shittily, some done good, some done mediocrely high. You got right there all the right places. Because you kind of just don't give enough damns about the movie. And honestly, it's a forgettable flick. It's not bad enough to be one of the worst movies I've watched this year. Dear God, is there not enough bad in this movie to even be close to being on that list so far? That list is filled right now, and it's getting bigger. But it is easily one of the most just disposable films. You don't need to watch it. That's probably the worst thing. Like, if you like the Nicholas Sparks kind of movies, you might enjoy it a little bit. The creepiness of the romance at the beginning kind of does sour you a little bit, I think. But eventually, I guess because it gets sweet enough, you're like, alright, put up with some of the creepiness. I mean, at least he's not like sort of sniffing her shoes, just, you got some nice feet. But, that's the best I can give it. Just, 4, yay. So, yeah, if you like Nicholas Sparks, watch the movie. If not, then you can skip it. You're not going to feel offended because you missed one of the best dramas of the night. You missed a mediocre teenage drama. That's all. But hey, I'll be back soon with whatever the hell else I feel like deciding to watch. So until then, I'll see you all later. So bye bye, everybody.